Before people move to Southwest Florida, one of the biggest questions they have is, what does it cost to live here? Is it still affordable, or have prices gone up as much as people say? If we haven't met yet, my name is Brittany Mixon and I'm a local real estate agent in Fort Myers. On this channel, I share what it's like to live and buy a home in Southwest Florida. Make sure to subscribe because every week I put out a new video. If you're thinking of relocating here or just starting to research the area, today I'm going to talk about what it actually looks like to live here. The cost of homeowners insurance, the prices, everyday living, HOA, taxes, and so much more. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's go ahead and talk about the most important one, home prices. Our home prices have seen a drastic change since the COVID era. So from 2020 to 2022, I would say our average home price increased by 40%. But since then, we have lost an average of 18%. So our home prices have slashed. I would say this year we're starting to see that it's averaging out and we're not seeing any more decreases unless that property is, of course, overpriced, then you will continue to see the decrease. I would say your start-in prices, depending on where you want to be, could be anywhere from $325 to $400. This depends on the type of home and location. So that is a very big factor when looking at a home in Southwest Florida. Because Southwest Florida is so large, you have so many different variations of where you could be. Fort Myers, depending on where you live, if you live close to the water, it's going to be closer to maybe $700,000. If you live in Babcock Ranch, maybe you do get a new home for $400,000. Cape Coral, $300,000 to $1 million. It really is all over the place. So if you want a specific range, then it's going to depend on the area you live in. If you want Fort Myers, I would say the average price of a home in a good location, meaning it's close to everything or has an HOA, whatever that case may be, I would say your average price is anywhere from $400,000 to $600,000, and on the lower end, it's going to be maybe $300K to $400,000, and that would be possibly villas, townhomes, or a home that needs a lot of work. Like I said before, it really depends on the area, the location, and what attributes the home has. If it's on the water, it's going to probably be 600 plus, depending on where it is. If it has acreage, same thing, 600 plus. New communities, depending on where it's at and where it's located, could honestly range anywhere from 300 to 600, but I like that price range of 400 to 600,000 if you are looking for a good home that has updates and in a great location. So maybe near schools or shopping, whatever it may be, that's probably a good range to be at. You can find more affordable housing, but it really just puts you in different areas and everybody has different preferences. Where are you working? All of that. So I would say if you want a good average, 400,000 to 600,000. And I still think you can even apply that to parts of Estero. I will say Estero is probably higher end. It's starting to push more towards that 600,000. It just depends on where you want to be. But we've covered prices in some of our other videos for certain communities, so you're always welcome to go look at those. But if you want an actual generalization of what our pricing looks like, I would say for a good single family home, you're anywhere from 400,000 to 600,000, and that's in most of our locations. Of course, home price is just one piece of the puzzle. The other piece people often talk about is property taxes. And yes, Florida does have better property taxes than somewhere like New York or California. But does that mean we are cheaper in other areas? I don't know. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. But the one thing about property taxes, we obviously have no state income tax here. I would say your average property tax, if you want to know, on a home is anywhere from 1% to 1.5% of the price. We also have homestead exemption here. I know this exists in some other states or it might be considered something else, but this does put a cap on your property's value. If your property is a full-time residency, you can claim homestead, and that will they take about $50,000 off of your assessed value, and then you are assessed off of that value of your home. And then homestead only allows them to increase your taxes annually by a certain percentage. So they can only go so high. So that is a big plus in the state of Florida. If you have a home and this is your second home, your taxes will obviously be way more. It also depends on some areas of Fort Myers. If you live in an area that is city and county, then your taxes would be higher than someone who doesn't have city tax and maybe they just have county taxes. A lot of new construction communities have started to put what we call CDD taxes, and that is a community developed district. And basically the best way to put that is an infrastructure tax. They are basically taxing you for all of the infrastructure of that community, and sometimes those last for about 30 years and sometimes they last forever. In Gateway, mine was renewed, so I have a lot more years of a CDD, but it's built within your tax bill. So if you do see CDDs, it's very simple. Look at the home's tax bill, and if it says that it's $4,000, and if an agent or someone tells you there's a CDD, that $4,000 includes the CDD. So it's not into addition on top of the $4,000. It's bundled already, and that's showing you the total. I do know that the governor has talked about removing taxes from the state of Florida for your property. And I know people think about, well, what would happen for your schools and, you know, and your city and those type of taxes? I think that stays. I think your CDD stays. I believe that your county taxes would stay that pay for your schools and trash and all of that. But I believe what would go away is your actual property taxes, because where he's coming from is he's saying, you own the home, you've already paid the state of Florida for your home, you do not need to pay property taxes on your actual home. So that assessed value is probably what goes away. So I would assume if this does pass, which it will be on the next ballot, I would maybe say in most cases, you'll see tax bills be cut in half because the property tax goes away, but I do think the county and city taxes will obviously stay there. We can't just get rid of all of that. Now the question is when you get rid of property taxes, where does that money go? And I do think it'll get shifted somewhere else. It's just a matter of where. Another big part people talk about is home insurance. And yes, I actually feel like home insurance has increased more significantly than taxes. And home insurance, after all of the hurricanes we had, really changed our market. We saw rates double, and it really outpriced a lot of people, especially when you have high home prices and insurance rates. You add in that high home insurance, it really knocked people out for what they could afford. We are in the middle of, or you're at the end of an insurance reform. So I do feel like rates are actually getting better, and they will get better. So you're gonna see that. And it has started to shift as we get more insurance providers back in the state of Florida. But unfortunately, after all the hurricanes and some of the scamming that happened and some of the insurance companies that pulled out, I mean, listen, we live in a hurricane state, okay? When there are major disasters and we hadn't had one in 10 years and then one hits, they're not prepared for that. And so some people just want it out, and that's what happened. And so we're going through that adjustment. I think we're on the tail end of it, and we're going to start seeing better insurance prices. But obviously, so many things go in the cost of insurance of your home. Your roof matters, the age of your home matters. I would say if you're in a flood zone, you can expect more money for home insurance, and sometimes it can be more than your actual home insurance. If it's in a flood zone and the homeowner currently has a flood policy and it's assumable, it's usually cheaper than pulling a new policy. So there are a lot of factors. I feel like people who have pools, you're going to pay more money, and the bigger the home, you're going to pay more money. The older the home, you're also going to pay more money. So it depends on upgrades and what you have done. We feel like, or I feel like in this market, what I'm seeing is I see a lot of people pick new construction for many reasons. One, the pricing is usually pretty good, but their home insurance is honestly, you can't beat it. It's very cheap. It's the cheapest option when it comes to home insurance, is typically on new construction because they're built to codes and everything else. I personally do not love the idea of flood insurance. So if you're conscious of your numbers at all, I would probably stay away from a flood zone to help avoid some of that extra cost. So I think as far as home insurance goes, I do think we'll start to see a difference. To put in reference, I have a home that was built in 2005. We have a new roof. Everything else is built to code as far as, we don't have any issues there. And our home insurance is $3,200 for the year. Previous years is about $4,500, so we did see it go down. I also dropped some of my content insurance because I just didn't feel like I needed it all. But for a 4-bedroom home, 2 baths, about 2,500 square feet with no pool, we're running about $3,200 a year. And we also do not live in a flood zone. So a new construction home was obviously less. And I would say right now, I've seen policies anywhere from $2,000 to $3,500. So it really just depends on what you want to insure. And the more you learn about insurance, the more you realize there's some things you just don't need to pay for. Okay, so I know we have talked about home prices, we've talked about insurance and taxes. So we have all 3 of those. And another thing to know about Fort Myers or Southwest Florida in general, and what other people have to inquire about when cost, are HOAs. We are very HOA heavy in the Southwest Florida area. It is hard to find a home not in an HOA. Now you can, but sometimes people do not like the location of those homes. So HOA costs are another factor here in Southwest Florida that you need to add on potentially, and HOAs can vary drastically. I would say a lot of your new communities, especially the ones that offer all of the luxury amenities, are going to be or golf communities, anywhere from $200 to $500 a month, sometimes more. Sometimes they include cable, internet, lawn. It really just depends. All of these communities are structured differently. And so some of them may include a gate and some of them may not. And I would say if you have a community or a home in an HOA that doesn't have a gate or doesn't have amenities, you're going to have a very, very low HOA fee. So it is possible to find sometimes an HOA fee of, $300 a year or $85 a month. Whatever it is, there are options like that in Gateway or other parts of Fort Myers. You can find them. It's limited, but you can find them. When I talk to people, some of the things that we kind of work backwards, and I usually ask people, hey, what is your preferred monthly budget? And then we go back from there and we're able to talk with the lender, and then we can kind of dictate how much our HOA needs to be monthly, along with taxes and homeowners insurance. Outside of housing costs, most people also want to know about everyday living expenses. So this can be grocery, gas, anything you can actually, shopping, dining. I would say national, as far as some of these other prices go for shopping and dining, of course, it is a little better than some. I know that sales tax can be less here because, again, there's certain taxes that we don't have that other states have. Gas wise, I know we're less for gas than we would be for like California. But gas just ranges here. You can literally drive 3 hours from Fort Myers and you'll find gas cheaper. It just, again, depends on what area you're living in. But it's usually pretty average here for whatever is national. And then I would say for groceries, same thing. Inflation's the real deal, right? So there are cheaper places to shop. It really just depends on what you like. Publix is a very common grocery store here. It's one of our favorites. It's very nice. The experience is very good. However, I do feel like they have very high prices. And so you can find cheaper food elsewhere, but maybe the quality is different. As far as living or like everyday life, I would say, to be honest with you, I feel like everything's expensive now. So on top of everything else, it just really stinks because I know that like everyone is experiencing inflation in some sense, no matter where it is in their life or where they live. And so, as I stated before, I do feel like it's just more pressure on our area that the cost of living is higher now and everyday living, that it's just becoming impossible for some people to be able to live here or retire here. And so you're starting to see some of that. I am seeing some change because, I said home prices have gone down, and so is home insurance and taxes, but it's just really hard with inflation, but I know people see that everywhere. So I would say that probably what you have in other states is very similar here for as far as groceries and everything like that. I'm sure it depends on what grows naturally near you as well, and what your grocery stores can get in for cheaper than shipping it to the state of Florida if it's something we don't have. So I would say that's another cost that people think about. Utilities, I would say pretty average. Your utilities here, it just depends on where you live, but our water bills are typically pretty low. And then I would say electric can be higher in summer. Again, I have a 4-bedroom, two bath home, and it's 2,500 square feet. And I would say at max over summer, sometimes I've seen my bill be 230 if that means that it's like a really, really hot summer. If you have a pool, you're going to see a little bit difference on your electric bill, because if you heat the pool, heating a pool is very expensive to do so. So there are different variations, but as far as most things, it's similar to most. I will say I do think our car insurance can be higher than other states, and I believe it's just part of the driving that's here in the state of Florida, unfortunately. So you can see higher vehicle insurance here, and I don't have a national average, unfortunately, but I do hear that our insurance here is pretty high. Is Fort Myers or Southwest Florida cheaper than living in other states? And my answer to you is it varies. It depends. I do believe that you can find affordable housing in the state of Florida or where we are, but maybe your lifestyle will look different, right? If you're coming from places like New York and California, yeah, probably it is cheaper to live here. If you're moving from somewhere like that's Kentucky, right? And maybe it's a small town of Kentucky, it's going to feel expensive to live here. So it really depends on where you're coming. It varies by location, it varies by your house. There's so many factors that go into it. I will say, and I truly, truly believe this, that we did, and we're starting to see a correction, but outpriced a lot of our buyers in the market. And I do feel like Florida used to be considered a cheaper place to retire, and that is no longer a thing. So what I feel like that means is that it's taking people longer to buy homes or save to be ordered to retire here in the state of Florida because of the increase of pricing across the board everywhere. And inflation's a big part of that too, because the more it is to live every day, the harder it is to save money in just certain areas of your life. So I think that what used to be a cheaper place to retire is no longer a cheaper place to retire, and people are required to save longer or wait a little longer to be able to move here. If you're thinking about moving to Fort Myers or the Southwest Florida area and you need help deciding on what areas fit your lifestyle and your budget best, please reach out. I'd love to help. Make sure to subscribe because every week I put out a new video.